Gun Owners of America privately are in there. Of course it's in there. Obama said it's in there. It's in the UN treaty. And the open borders garbage. The left wants that gun control. The left wants those open borders. The left wants the high taxes. They want the global carbon tax that is admittedly cemented through trade deals that are added as a carbon tariff that's then paid into an international global governance funding mechanism. So see, that's why Bilderberg's important, because it's another window into all this secretive activity that's going on. Joining us from the United Kingdom in London is Paul Watson. He tweeted yesterday that police were running around in his yard and then ran off when he went outside. He's trying to be stoic and saying it's probably no big deal. Paul, I think it's probably 50% chance that it has to do with Bilderberg. But see, Bilderberg will do stuff like spoof your house for a SWAT team raid. Or if you were married, they'd call up and threaten to cut your wife's head off. And I've had them do that when I'm at Bilderberg. They're calling back home, threatening my family, and listening to the phone calls, and then telling your wife or your spouse what you were just talking about on the phone to mess with them. No caller ID comes up. It may not be Bilderberg, but it could be. They may put in the Interpol database just to mess with you that you're a narcotics trafficker. And then they'll take it out later once the low-level police find out it's not true. They'll go, oh, that's an error, sorry. But this is what Bilderberg's able to do, because most of the hotel is just filled with government agencies and spy groups, all spying on other governments that are there. So it's a huge secret summit, more important than the G20. And so we commend your courage to go cover it. I need to talk to you after the show today. I've got major intel on Bilderberg. I know you were past some of the sources and are able to ferret that. So, Paul, when are you planning first to release what we know about the true Bilderberg agenda this year?
I'm going to do a video on it this weekend, so it'll be out Monday, and then we'll have the article version of that as well with all the hyperlinks. So that'll be out on Monday with what we know about the agenda so far, and obviously we're going to get more information and put out more articles in the days after that.
Now, they've got the hotel shut down a week before. I would like you to go early. And, I mean, obviously, they're going to try to throw you out or whatever, but so what? You're just there trying to cover it as a journalist. They try to act like we're criminals. We're not.
No, I mean, the thing you mentioned before, when Bilderberg was in Watford, they called us all up like 3 days before, 4 days before, and basically made it known that we were on a list. We wouldn't be allowed to stay in the hotel days before Bilderberg even started. And then the head security guy at the Grove, we asked him directly, why were we kicked out? And he said, basically, you're on a list. It's special branch British intelligence that are telling us what to do.
Well, sure. So they showed up. They showed up to talk to us, too.
Yeah. So I've been on that list since at least 2013. The thing with the police yesterday, it was definitely odd. I mean, I was just getting out of the shower. There were two cops in my backyard just walking around. There's a loud knock at the door. And this policewoman says, and this isn't a hot, early summer's day. I'm airing out the living room. My window's slightly open. And she's like, your window was open. We thought you were being burgled. I'm like, oh, okay. And she says, I've shut it now. It's okay. And she was like, there are two cops in your backyard looking around as well. So when they left...
Talk about a nanny state. Talk about a nanny state where in the summer you can't open your window.
But she said, oh, I've shut your window. And then I looked and she didn't even shut it. It was just bizarre because it's never happened before. It's probably nothing. But as you said, 1 week before...
Oh, yeah, we're just on special branch list and, had to meet with all these feds and everything and, had helicopters following us around. But nothing's going on. I mean, we went to see Stonehenge and had a car following us 100 miles out of the way. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. Everybody knows who we are. We're journalists who are covering a global event. It's simple. We're a known quantity. It's ridiculous, but they do all this to play act like journalism is illegal. But see, Paul, how we don't make a big deal out of all this? It's sensational that journalists were put on a special branch list. I don't think we ever, which is in Interpol as well, I don't think we've ever even talked about this properly. Why don't you do a story about that? I mean, our lives are so crazy. we're so used to it, we need to telegraph to people how crazy this is, Paul.
Well, it was basically a violation of the European Human Rights Act, because that states you can't be discriminated against based on either gender, sexual preference, or philosophy, personal philosophy. So those gay people who get denied access at hotels and B&Bs, which happen in a couple of cases, they win all their cases. And I was discriminated against based on my philosophy. They kicked me out based on that solely.
How dare you want to know when a bunch of world leaders are meeting in secret deciding your future, and as a journalist want to cover that? That is just insane. That's like wanting a big glass of ice water in the Sahara Desert. That's like wanting to have a ship when you're out in the ocean. It's like wanting to have air to breathe. It's so weird. So weird that we'd want to know what's in the TPP. So weird. I mean, it's just, we're weird. During the last few breaks, I was looking over the trade and services agreement from WikiLeaks. We're talking 100-plus pages in just one of the sections, and I was scanning over it, and it's really bad. And Forbes has now read it and is pointing out how horrible it is. But the larger issue is this is being done in secret. It's multinational. The agenda is set by private corporations that are very authoritarian in every aspect. They're the ones funding the whole globalist agenda. You don't name all this bad stuff, they're behind it. But here's the bigger issue. They're giving themselves the authority, and this is all written where they may modify it anytime they want. So it's a tyrannical power grab. It's kind of like Obamacare was written so open-ended. And then Obama hundreds of times has modified it himself. It's this process where it's just they can do whatever they want. And then they ignore any of the rights that they talk about for the people. Paul Watson, we're sending in Josh and Rob Dew. They're going out there Sunday. They should be in and around the area by Monday. I don't want to really get into when you're going, but I think you should go sooner rather than later. And because we really need to get shots inside that hotel and stuff. Plus, I mean, we have one of their online magazines. You can see what it looks like. But I like to get in beforehand, so I'd like to tell you, you're a lot closer. I think you should just leave tomorrow. But I'll call you after the show today. I've gotten so busy, I haven't really pre-planned a lot of this with you as I should have. But the bigger issue is we have sources, plus we have statements by Bilderberg members in public. We know what their agenda is going to be. I need to call you with some of the intel I've gotten from one of my big sources, but I know you have one of those same sources. You're planning Monday, you think, is the best time to release the Bilderberg agenda? And then I guess Thursday, they'll probably release their spun version on their website. Right, Paul?
Yeah, they always release bullet points, which provide no substance whatsoever, very vague, generic information, which could be about anything. So they don't really release their minutes or anything detailed. So they just do that to say, oh, look, we're being transparent, when it's basically nothing. The key intel always comes out before or immediately after the conference. So that's what we'll be talking about.
Other points so far, I mean, it's in the Austrian news already, some of the points we already knew. Open borders, making Europe bring in all these immigrants, getting rid of borders, making us do it, make us all pay for it, more social manipulation, getting rid of cash, doing bail-ins, doing $100 trillion per decade global carbon tax. What are some of the other things we know already are going to be on the agenda that you're going to be fleshing out on Monday?
Well, the Agenda 21 thing is going to be big, despite the fact they keep getting caught in all these faux pas on the environment. You know, not just ClimateGate. Almost every single month we have a new scandal. They're still pushing this 80% carbon tax reduction, which will basically cripple Western economies and turn everybody into, you know, serfs for central banks to an even greater extent.
Cripple's not strong enough. It will end civilization.
Yeah, basically. The French foreign minister, Laurent Fabius, came out on Monday, and he is a Bilderberg member, and said, look, this is not going to get past Congress, this Agenda 21, 80% carbon reduction. We're going to bypass Congress. We're going to make the Obama administration, in concert with the UN, force this into being. So they're going to use outright dictatorship to force this eco-tyranny into existence, or at least going to try that. And that's what it's going to be about. They're also going to be talking about the global political awakening, which Zbigniew Brzezinski talked about, 4 or 5 years ago now, because we're already seeing the consequences of that with these riots. That's why they're trying to hijack groups like Black Lives Matter, because they know that this resentment is going to build.
Stay there, Paul. Do 5 more minutes with us. I'm going to come right back and have you get more into the agenda on Bilderberg, the folks behind the TPP, and everything else straight ahead. A window into the shadow here. I just cannot get over the awakening that's happening, but for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. That goes both ways. The establishment is just speeding up, ramping up everything they're doing, and they're just trying, I guess, to create learned helplessness, to acclimate us to all this. How do you think that's going, A, and then B, finish up on some more of the agenda that we ferreted out from our sources and then confirmed, because we double-check our sources, that the very Bilderberg Group members are actually making a lot of these statements in public. I mean, they're such nakedly totalitarian.
Yeah, that's what they're saying about, the agenda to ban cash, forcing everyone to have a government-controlled bank account because they want to keep interest rates low, and they know that everybody's increasingly going to pull their money out of the banks. So they want to force people to keep their money in the banks and then regulate it that way. They're also, outright creating class warfare. George Soros said that class warfare and riots were coming back in 2012. Now he's funding Black Lives Matter, which is driving a lot of that because it's been hijacked and steered towards racial division since, last year to the tune of $33 million. And meanwhile, the elite are buying all these safe rooms. They're buying remote property in New Zealand. They're saying because of things like Ferguson, they're concerned about societal breakdown and disorder, while themselves creating it with the proven method of wealth inequality and this drop in real wages as the worldwide inflation spikes through endless money printing. Those factors always create class warfare, riots, and domestic civil unrest. So they're mixing the ingredients to a T, and they know what the final product's going to be. They're bailing out. They're getting their safe rooms and their remote property, while the middle class are going to be squeezed in the middle. It's the whole pressure from above, pressure from below concept. So I'm sure that will be covered at Bilderberg this year, that whole class warfare, wealth inequality, powder keg that's set to explode and already has to a great extent with Ferguson and Baltimore.
Let me shift gears into another subject and get your take on it. I went back and looked. WikiLeaks claimed that they had the whole TPP, but only released the internet section. Then they were saying, oh, we don't have it. Then I made a big deal about it on Sunday and Monday. I'm not saying it, that we caused it, but we might have put pressure on them. I'm sure other people were too. So now they've released another section saying, oh, we had a fundraiser, a bounty for it. But I guess it's a bounty to get them to release it. You've researched this. What's really going on there?
Well, I think a lot of the conservative support for it, which you've seen in Congress, is because of the false belief that, this will somehow allow smaller businesses in America to sue the government if the government imposes some kind of, BS environmental regulation that puts them out of business. When if you read into it, it doesn't allow that at all. It's all about this corporate fascism, this revolving door between the huge mega corporations and government, allowing them to impinge on sovereignty. It's got nothing to do with the small businesses in America. So that's why it's got a lot of misguided conservative support.
Paul Joseph Watson's our guest. I need to call you right after the show today at 2 o'clock Central for some planning sessions, because Bilderberg is upon us yet again, and I've got to figure out how to get you some information, because I know you're being watched that I don't want them to have for your security. So I'll be calling you today at about 2 Central, okay?
Okay.
Paul Watson from Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, our European correspondent. Obama trade global access to citizens' data as Boehner works to give Obama even more secret powers to pass any legislation he wants globally. I guess treaties, you could call it, outside of Congress's authority. And it's also being reported that under the new provisions of the TPP that's been leaked by WikiLeaks,